Hi, two things. One, sorry for the audio in the previous video. Felt like holding the mic would make it better. Didn't. There were points where it didn't. It occasionally fucked with the audio where it was, kind of disconnected, so I had to use the camera audio, as well as the fact that it just was loud and bassy. So that was unfortunate. I don't blame you if you clicked off that because of it. It's fair. Also, apologies for the possible quality on this camera. I don't know why. I'm going to try to keep this short because I don't want to chit-chat too much with the intro. I don't know why. My Streamlabs was set to like 2,000 bits per second, all that sort of shit, for quality. That might sound great to somebody who might not be super experienced, which is okay. But let me let you know, that is horrible. I didn't even realize my streams were like that. So I apologize for that. I've since set it to like 9,000, something like that. It can now be at 1080. I don't know why it was at 480. I seriously have no idea. On the previous computer, it was fine. That also implies that every single time I've recorded with this, it's been at 480, which means the anime adaptations video and the figurine one, both of those were 480. And I had no clue. So anyways, let's get to the review. So believe it or not much happens in the first two chapters. We get the essential just start to the Garfield and Midoriya fight, and we learn that Subaru has already used Return by Death. We don't really see how or anything like that. Hell, if we're being real here, we don't see it at all throughout this entire volume, which is a very interesting choice. Not even in a bad way, I mean that in a fully good way. It's very interesting to see this scenario where he's already died before and is restarting, but now we're kind of seeing the events unfold from the good loop. The only thing I don't like about it is it kind of fucks over the whole thing that people have where they keep count of every time that he's looped, or like the amount of times that they mention. And right now we can only say there's been one, but we don't know if there's been multiple. So that's the only thing. But other than that, the first chapter kind of just discusses, that, as well as, Halle Bell has to handle this much greater opponent, who we learn later on, and we'll get to that, of course. And then the chapter after is just explaining, okay, here's where everybody's fights are. And this one really hurt me, because seeing where all these fights were set up, it's like, okay, I have a general idea. I did have to rely on some of the comments in the WCT website, which, thank you, by the way, for the people down there, essentially explaining what each of the lines were. That really helped. But one of them I did not need an explanation on, and it was Tanza. This one, just seeing her line, seeing the whole thing of like, finally and all this, it hurt, because I knew exactly what was going to happen from there. I'm like, oh yeah, no, of course she's going to fight Iris. Yeah. That's gonna be a painful chapter. That's gonna, especially with me, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna really hurt to read. But yeah, with that said, the first two chapters pretty simple in that regard, and then we get interesting sort of scenarios here with learning more about Priscilla's kind of thing, where she sees something in Sphinx's staff, which I'm curious about, and then we get Yorna's section, or Iris, where this is really interesting. She's trying to fight Rowan, and she is really struggling, because this is what makes Iris so interesting, and Yorna and all that, is she's stuck in the past, but also trying to live in the present, and the two kind of try to blend together, and instead of creating this perfect middle ground for her, where she has tranquility with all this and everything, it is a fucked up homunculus where she cannot figure out what to do, right? She's trying to fight him and trying to do the least amount of damage possible, even if at this point he's already dead, right? He's already killed himself. But at the same time, she's kind of having difficulty with that sort of thing, and as a result, she's getting hurt real bad. Until Tanza steps into the fight and just smacks Rowan away, and this is where we get to the difficult part. Because now we have the next chapter. There was a fucking reason why, when I was talking about that one Arc 7 volume, I think it was volume 31, there was a reason why I said I'm probably going to enjoy Tanza a whole lot, and it's why I put her so high, right? I had a feeling she was going to be a great character. And I know there was some odd reactions to that because it was just like, we barely know shit about Tanza and you're putting it that high. I just had very high expectations for her, right? I was right to have those expectations. This chapter that I'm going to talk about here is, and I mentioned it in my notes, I truly, rarely ever say the word peak, right? I'm not really huge on a lot of terms that get used. I fucking hate the term mid, especially because it just gets thrown around willy-nilly, and people always use it to just bash on other series, and then also proceed to say, oh, don't bash on my series, your series is mid, and it's like, my brother, you are doing the same fucking thing. But, you know, words like that I'm not huge on and everything, and like even peak gets used a lot, and it's to a degree where I'm like, there are peak moments with series, but I don't think everything is, you know, completely flawless and all that. But here's the thing. I think for singular points, there are places where you could, you know, use the word. This is somewhere where you can use it. Because, oh my lord, this chapter. Tanza's backstory and all this stuff with her and her sister, and how her sister dies, and her meeting Yorna, and Yorna saying, you know, I don't like this country either, all this, right? Like, Tanza being afraid to say those thoughts, but Yorna kind of pulls it out of her and fully, you know, reciprocates it. And then Yorna trying to act cold and being like, oh, get out, right? Like, and just grabbing her by the collar of her clothes. And Tanza fighting back, knowing that she's, like, turned into a bad child, essentially, right? And she's fighting back, and she can tell Yorna's not smiling, right? Her biggest thing is, this would be fine. You know, all of us want Yorna to be happy. If this means that she can live with this person, Yugurd, and she'll be happy and all that, by all means she can do that. She's not smiling. And she starts using the soul marriage technique and goes, nah, I can tell. You're not happy with this. You're not happy with the fight, like the fact that you have to fight me. You're not happy with any of this. You aren't abandoning us. I can tell. And then just smacks Rowan away. Like, it is a beautiful chapter. This makes me love Tanza so much. This makes me love the complexity of Yorna so much. I'm calling her Yorna now because this is a scenario, right? I will call her differently depending on what scenario we are in. But I love these two characters. I am probably, when we do the tier list with the next volume, because I think that's what's going to happen, the fuck just happened to me? I'm not even gonna edit that out. I was gonna edit that out. I flipped upside down. I did nothing. I touched nothing. The camera can do that? That took me completely out of thought there. Hold on. It can do that? How did I do that? I'm curious. I don't know. Whatever. If it happens again, it'll be interesting. Regardless. Anyways, what I was saying. I'm going to change how I refer to her depending on the scenario. But when we get to the whole volume, like, review, essentially, right? Not volume review, arc review, sorry. The camera flipping took me out of it. And I talk about, you know, all the characters that I've enjoyed, all this sort of shit, right? How I'm going to rank them on the tier list, because that's what we're going to do probably. Especially if the volume cover for the next one is a spoiler. I will probably change up how we're doing it, much like I did with Arc 7, where it's part of the full review instead of a smaller one. I might just put it part of the full one just because, right, that might be easier. Just for the sake of, oh yeah, here's the timestamp, guys. I'm not going to do 2 uploads. Here's just one, and then, you know, there's your review. Might just do it that way because it's easier. But when we do that, I'm probably going to have an updated tier list. I'm probably not going to go in and actually fully, you know, go through it. But, I mean, I might. But at the same time, if I don't, I think Yorna and Tanza are going to rise super hard. They have been my favorite characters in these two arcs. They are the best, and for a lot of reasons that I both can and can't talk about, right? There's a lot of shit I can't talk about project related, and because of the sad circumstance of the previous video, you all now know a lot more about the project, which I will get to at the end of the video, because, you know, we have more to discuss regarding that. But there's stuff I can and can't discuss regarding it, but I love these two as characters. So this chapter was beautiful to me. I loved it. It's not the like best chapter of the arc, because I still think that goes to like the Spica chapter, like that whole thing. And there's also the chapter with like Subaru and Todd, and like, you know, the Rem line and everything. Like, I love that chapter a lot. There's a lot here with Arc 8, but this chapter's pretty damn good. I think I would rate it pretty damn high in terms of Arc 8. It probably would be number 3, if not like at the bare minimum in top 5, right? And then the next 3 chapters are pretty much the conclusion to the Ugard fight. The first one doesn't really start off with much. I mean, it's cool action, but overall, it's not that much that happens, really. It's kind of just the only thing that I was able to note down with it was the fact that, oh, I didn't even realize Wolfman fighting Ugard. And Wolfman, person, not really, I mean, the exact person, but people responsible for killing his wife. Same with the mole people, who aren't in this fight, but I wish there was somebody who was related to that in here. I don't think Groovy is at all. I'm pretty sure he's just Squirrel, or something of relation to that. But I mean, if he was mole related, it'd be perfect. And then anyways, we get the continuation of, you know, Ugard's kind of character and learning more about him. His curse isn't really something he's inflicting on others, rather it was inflicted to him, and now it gets just spread onto others as a result, right? He doesn't feel it because of, you know, what he was born with, but others do. And despite that, Iris still, you know, fell in love with him and was close to him and all this sort of shit, which is really sweet. It does make you feel really bad for him. It's just also a thing of, this is also a fucked up scenario for Iris / Yorna, because look at what she now has, right? She's kind of moved past things in a way. But you also just later on get, oh, here's Groovy going for the Fiend Sword, but because it hates him and everything, it gets tossed up. Hallidwell gets it, there, you know, Ugard goes. Presumably. He might still be around a little bit. We might see him with the next volume, and, you know, Iris might talk to him, but overall, that's it. It was a very cool fight all around. I love seeing Hallidwell's tricks, and then seeing him get countered, because this is, you know, quite the tough opponent to go against. But overall, pretty good. Pretty good. I actually like how Tappei, you know, kind of concluded Ugard's character here, despite how little we essentially knew about him, right? We were able to learn enough that he was interesting. So again, I'm going to bunch up my thoughts on the next 2 chapters, but not the third one, even though these all relate to each other, because of how this was. So now we get the Balroy fight, right? And the overall thing here is like, okay, he goes outside, and then, oh shit, here comes the Roswell and Medium. And we also learned with this, that, like from Flop, that, oh, Balroy wouldn't just recklessly destroy everything because he knows, you know, Flop is there, Medium is there, and he doesn't want to hurt them. And we get this fight between them, right, and all this sort of shit. We get a little bit more building of Balroy's character, right? Learn more about him, all this sort of shit. But here's the thing, right? I put this down in my notes as well. I like the action in this series, right? Love it. I like the character building in this series. Love that too. These chapters were really hefty, and not in a good way, because a lot of it kind of just felt a lot just stacked on top of each other, and there wasn't enough that was super intriguing. There's a reason I have the 3rd chapter separated, because I'll talk about that one. I'll talk about what makes that one very entertaining. The action here was decent. The character building was decent, but it didn't really feel like there was that much that really kept me interested with it, if I'm being honest, right? I know there's some people who might have really enjoyed these chapters. I just wasn't super huge on them, which is totally fine, right? That doesn't take down my opinion of the volume or anything like that. I mean, it does to a certain degree, but perfect way to look at it is this. Arc 6, the final volume of that, is my favorite volume in all of Arc 6, which, by the way, favorite arc of literally any series, just as a reminder. And also, in case you didn't know, because you might not have seen the review, which is fair enough. But, here's the thing. That volume also has a fight, like the Julius fight, where I like certain moments of it, right? I like him reforming the contract, and I like the moment where he reforms his oath to Anastasia. But overall, I'm not huge on that fight, which sucks. I really like Reed. I really like Julius. That fight was okay. I wasn't huge on it, but I still love that volume. And that's still the thing here. As much as I find this part of the fight to be, alright, it's still a thing of, that doesn't necessarily ruin the volume for me, right? It's just a small, kind of nitpicking sort of thing where I'm like, this could have been done better. But then we get the final chapter to the fight. And this one, I love. This one was done super well. Like, unlike the Julius fight that I mentioned, right? That one has moments where it's great, but the conclusion to the fight doesn't even feel fully satisfying. Ooh, this one. So, Roswaal, of course, tries to find tactics to, fuck with Balroy. I also forgot to mention, actually, let me make a side note here. I wasn't huge on the fact that the chapter in between this one and the first kind of just ends in the same place that the first one ends. As much as, they're giving exposition for Balroy and his character, it's a little fucked up to just kind of be like, oh yeah, wait, no, here's the same end spot after you've read for like 20 or half an hour, right? A little fucked up. Anyways, going back to this, and this great chapter, this one's different though. Roswaal, of course, finds the means to distract him, so, here's a bunch of ice coming in, which fucks with Balroy, because it's like, he's trying to shoot Medium's, arm, essentially, to incapacitate her, and, she'll be okay, yeah, she'll be injured, but she can't fight back, and then I will kill the other dude, right? That's his strategy. So here comes a bunch of ice to fuck with him, right? Now he has to focus on evading all of that, while also trying to attack and everything, which Medium is still, slashing out of the way. It's great. And then he comes up with the great strategy of, here's more fire. And a bunch of fire just comes storming down with the ice towards the Crystal Palace. And Balroy realizes, oh shit, oh, Sphinx is in there. And also, Madeline and all that, but, specifically Sphinx. Sphinx dies, he's fucked, right? So it's like, oh shit, okay, time to stop all of that. And it tries to stop all that. And then we get the next part of the strategy, which is Roswaal previously being told by Julius how to deal with him, essentially, right? Some details get, excluded because Julius doesn't want to discuss everything, but he has the general knowledge of the technique. So here comes a giant rainbow, which Balroy isn't even fully familiar with. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, I guess he would be affected by gluttony. Most people would be. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, of course he would. So here comes the giant rainbow, and now he's got to deal with that, and he manages to get a shot right into the back of Roswaal, who, now injured and all that. Oh, this is very easy to handle. He'll bleed out and die, and then Medium he can catch before she falls down and everything. And Roswaal just grabs Medium, and the sly piece of shit that he is sometimes lifts her up, boom, and chucks her right to the ground. And that doesn't seem like that big of a problem. I mean, it could be. Very easily could be. They're pretty high up in the air, Even if he goes down to catch her, there could be some risks, but he could catch her, except for the fact that all that ice that stormed down earlier had a second operation to it, which was creating a bunch of spikes on the floor. So now, Balroy has to choose. He either finishes off Roswaal, or breaks those spikes, and Medium lives. He, of course, despite being a zombie, chooses the spikes. So, shoots the spikes, and his life is ended, because Roswaal is still A-okay. Sly motherfucker. You know, I should have known he would have done something like this, but ooh, that was smart. Not the best move, but smart. And then into the next chapter, we get an interesting scenario, because Garfield was fighting Missoria, right? And he took a heavy hit the last time we saw him. And now he's kind of in a state where he's dying. Somewhat. We'll get to that. But the whole thing is he's watching a play of these cats fighting that are all dressed in a manner of, like, you know, symbolizing him, Heinkel, and Missoria. And also, I think the implication is that they look similar to Puck, is like the full explanation there, right? Because, I mean, they start wording them as Pucks later on, so I think that's the full implication of it. But then more and more people start surrounding him, not even just his friends and everything, but like enemies, all this sort of shit, everybody that he's known, right? And it's this slow realization of what he has to do, and all this, and I love it, right? It's Garfield fully, you know, going through his subconscious, seeing these versions of his friends, talking to them, figuring out what he has to do, and as soon as he has this plan in mind, he knows exactly what he needs to do to break through. Once he's figured out what to do, I really love it. You get this perfect, you know, retread of the Arc 5 scene where Kurgan just looks at him and goes like, "Oh, magnificent." And that's it. That's all he says. And that, I love that. I love that that's redone there. And, you know, Garfield goes through this whole thing with his friends. Everything finally snaps out of it. Gets back in the fight. It's good. And then he, you know, as I worded in my notes, he so long gave Bowser's Missoria right into a building, which is real great. Some people said that they don't enjoy this chapter because it's super long for just going through Garfield's mind and everything. But I don't know, I really like it. I like that it's this full delve into his subconscious and kind of talks more about what he thinks in his mind, this scenario for him. The fact that a lot of this is not just his friends, but there's his enemies, and the play going on is very similar to a play that he loved of the, like, subjugation of the white whale. I love it. I really do. I think this is a cool chapter that delves a lot more into him, and I really like it for that reason. And then again, we get another beautiful chapter where we learn a whole lot all at once. We see this scenario where it's like, oh, Reed was killing and eating a bunch of dragons. They kept trying to fight him out of the sake of pride. They didn't give a shit about each other, but it was for the sake of their own pride, and tried to fight him, and then just died. So they're like, oh shit, well now we have to, you know, figure out what are we doing. And some of them kind of just fucked off and created these dragon kin, which is what Madeline is. But essentially, it forms a husk of the previous, you know, dragon and creates a child who is more human in a sense, right? They're still a dragon, but they're also more human as a result. Very clear thing with this is Volcanica probably also has that kind of scenario. I saw people saying, oh, that probably means why, like, he recognized Patrichet, and it's like, well, here's the thing with that. I would agree if it worked for the fact that she's just a dragon, right? She's a ground dragon. We don't fully know the whole lore behind, like, Dragonkin. There might be more to it that we don't know yet, but the thing is, if there's no real human features to her other than ground dragon, I don't know that that's her. You know, I don't know that that's what she is. It could be interesting, but I don't know that that's necessarily true just yet, right? We get the continuation of the fight where Missoria almost blows up the Crystal Palace, and, you know, fucking Madeline inside of Missoria is, like, freaking the fuck out because she almost just killed the person she loves, which, speaking of which, we learn more about that and how it's a weird kind of scenario, it works very well, right? I'm calling it weird. It works very well. I like it. Where Balroy rescued her, and she was, a child while he was older, which already sounds bad. Don't worry. In case this is your first time hearing about this and you haven't actually read the volume, Tappei gives a very good explanation for this. Balroy sees her when she's a child and kind of helps her out and tries to take her out of there. He even fights Mizoria and all that. And because of this scenario where Balroy is teaching her and doing all this for her and just essentially trying to get her to live a normal life, she develops feelings for him. And these feelings very clearly aren't fully reciprocated. There's a lot of reasons really for it, but I guess the main thing that's clear is Balroy most likely likes, medium, right? That's the person he viewed as this person he would marry. So it's kind of this thing of, yeah, Madeline has these feelings because this is somebody she looks up to a lot. So as a result, that's going to affect her heavily, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's an actual connection between the two. Sometimes it's really cool to do that concept when you do it like that. Sometimes they don't need to have a connection, because if they have a connection, sometimes it's a little weird. Maybe even more than that. But if it's like that, where there's just one path and the other doesn't really, it just bounces off, that's okay. But then we learn how she reacted after the fact of him dying. We learn how she receives her last name, because it's like, oh yeah, there was some rebels to the country that, were well known and all this sort of shit, which is like a very weird last name to choose, because you are literally giving this last name of rebels who went against the royal family to this person who has every intention to also do so. So, little interesting to say that, right? A little interesting to just give her that, but okay, sure. We see how she generally reacted after he came back, all this sort of shit, as well as, speaking with Flop, which helps rekindle her feelings. And then the, once again, continuation of the fight and proper conclusion of it, where Garfield's doing well, but Mizoria kind of goes into the air and creates this massive attack that could just destroy the whole area. Except Garfield manages to just punch Mizoria, and this part I love, pretty much discusses that he would like to have a talk with Madeline. No just constant fighting, no seeing whichever one of them will fall first. Just a talk. Just a talk. Just like he had in Arc 4 with Emilia and Subaru. Just a talk. And I love that. I love that his character has reached this point where it was once full aggression and now he is fully willing to hear somebody out who was in a scenario that she was unsure of what to do, right? I love that. This was a great chapter. I absolutely enjoy Balroy and Madeline more now, especially Madeline. Good shit. Good shit to pay. So next we get the conclusion to the Cecilis and Arakia fight, all that sort of stuff. I mean, Al's there too, of course, but he doesn't end up doing an insane amount as a result, because it's just, Arakia exploding the whole area and then Cecilis counterattacking. Overall, the stuff here is cool. Like, I think it's very interesting, and it does make you feel bad to see Arakia wanting death. It's cool to see Cecilis talking to his essentially past self and remembering things and remembering partially why Chiza had turned him into a kid and all this, and remembering Arakia to a certain degree. Right? There's certain things that are piecing back together in his mind. Not perfectly, but certain things. Al's sword fucking breaks, which is very unfortunate, but to be fair, it's not like it was a super special sword, at least to my understanding. I haven't fully gone through the side stories relating to him and the sword and all that yet. But overall, there's some cool stuff here, and there's even some good action. However, I mentioned this in my notes, once again, going through that. There's moments with Cecilis that feel very 50-50 for me. A lot of his scenes are like that, where they are fantastic, or they're a bit slow. Like, they kind of just go on and on and on. And this one is the latter. There is a lot here where, just like I mentioned before, a lot gets piled on top to the point that it feels draining, right? I don't feel like I fully want to read at some points. And there's some good there, but there's not enough interesting stuff for me to consistently go through it. Like, I think the end bit of the second chapter, and when I say end bit, I mean like a good chunk of the end is pretty damn cool. And I think there's bits and pieces in there that are also really good. It's just a thing of, there's a lot of points with these chapters where it kind of just feels slow, right? And I'm not huge on that, because it's like, I don't always need to be entertained, right? I don't always need keys in my face, like, jangling around. But it is a thing of, if I want to keep reading, and I'm reading through a chapter that could be 10,000 words, 9,000 words, whatever it may be, I'm probably going to want at least 6,000 or so to be pretty damn entertaining. And when it feels like something like 3,000 or 2,000, that's not great. And then we have our final chapter, and this chapter delves into a few things. Albert is snooping around the Crystal Palace and sees something. We don't know what that is yet. We'll probably learn with the next volume. We kind of learn a little bit more about these zombies and how they get deformed in grotesque ways with every time like they're rebuilt and all this sort of shit. It's like kind of gross to think about, and honestly kind of horrific to imagine being in that scenario. But then we have the biggest moment of all. Sphinx is by where like Subaru and the others are, you know, while they're doing the whole name aiding sort of thing and dealing with the zombies. Yeah, she's there. She knows about the authority of gluttony. She knows that it's being used, and she death beams Jamal. She's there. She's just fucking there now. I'm sure we might learn how and why and all that, but this is a very fucking cool twist where it's just, oh yeah, there's the antagonist. There she is. She's just here now. Oh shit, right? And she's by the. I'm not gonna say like, oh, they're completely defenseless and all that. They can't do anything against her, but right now a lot of the super strong people are split up. Right? Everybody who's skilled, who's fast, all this, they're split up. And now in this current area, like yeah, we have Beatrice who is strong, of course, like very skilled, all that. We have Subaru who's making use of Spica, who is also pretty damn good. And we have Vincent, who yeah, has some good like use to him, especially with the Yang sword and all that. But this is kind of a thing. We're up against Sphinx here, right? Somebody who required Julius, Emilia, and Hallibel to fully stop in terms of that one blast, and then in terms of fighting, Garfield, Roswell, and Beatrice. This required like 6 people before. This is very scary that she's here now. But with that said, that's the volume. I am very intrigued to see where we go from here, because there's a lot that's concluding. There's a lot of final scenes that will probably happen with these zombies like Balroy. Ugard might talk to Iris, right, in the next volume. All this sort of shit. And Tanza is probably actually going to have a conversation with Yorna. I think there's a lot here that's going to happen. But on top of the fact of just Sphinx, right? I'm very curious to see what's happening there. I'm curious to see what Albert saw. There's a lot that has me super intrigued now. And this time, I am going to read the next volume as the chapters are coming out. Specifically when they're translated, because I like to show my support. And also I haven't gotten spoilers on my feed in a while. So I'm A-okay in that regard. But very excited to see what that's about. But for now, I can definitely say I enjoyed this volume a lot. Thumbs up. I think it's like 3rd place so far out of the 4 volumes that are out. The previous volume was like last, not to say it was bad, it was still great, but it's like last, then there's this one, then there's the 1st volume of Arc-8, and then there's the 2nd. And the top 2 could actually possibly interchange. I just kind of put the 2nd above because it has the Spica chapter, which is, you know, one of, if not my favorite chapter so far in the series. Probably one of, I don't know that it's my favorite, but it's very easily a strong candidate for it. Oh boy, time for the full video talk thing. I don't know what to word it as. You know what I mean. The part that's going to be cut out from the whole volume review. Anyways, yeah, sorry for the delay, peeps. A lot has been happening. First of all, I am a tall, white dude who does a lot of art, writing, and gaming. It feels weird to say gaming, but yeah. So as you can imagine, mild scoliosis. It's not that bad. I mean, mild is being used quite literally here. It's very minimal, but as a result, that's taken away from some of my time because I'm trying to turn that mild into nothing, essentially, right? And I've been doing better with it. I've been doing a whole lot better. I feel a lot better. Haven't had much stiffness or pain or anything like that, which is great, right? On top of the fact that, yeah, the last video we did on the channel last week, I think it was last week anyways, I believe. Yeah, that hurt. It hurt a lot. I was legitimately thinking about that for the next like 5 or 6 days. It was tough. It was really tough to get that news. My tears in that video were fully genuine. Like, I mean, it should be obvious from the get-go, but it was a tough thing to speak about because it was like, fuck, that came out of nowhere, and that Toriyama has an offer, like artist offer, all of that. It meant a lot, even if I am the like small part of this community sort of thing of like Dragon Ball fans and all that, where it's like, you know, I'm much like other people, you know, oh, my art and my writing were inspired by it. Like, there's countless people like that. I'm not even trying to undermine me or anything like that, or undermine others. It's just a thing of like, you know, that actually just goes to show how much of a fucking massive influence he had. But yeah, that, me fixing my back and my neck, a lot of stuff has kept me busy as of late. And, you know, I've been trying to stream 247. I've created this new plan where, you know, I finished the current ReZero volume, and I finished Slam Dunk, and I'm like, cool, so now I'm going to finish Steins Gate, and by the time you're seeing this video, I am probably done Steins Gate, probably. If I'm not, I will be done on the same day, and if not, I will be done Saturday. I will finish it this week, right? Speaking of Saturday, there's a live stream happening then for the ReZero stage. I'll be live streaming that. I just felt like mentioning that in there, in case you're curious. There's even a scheduled live stream up if you want to hit notifications on, whatever it may be. You're free to. That's the one time that I've actually kind of said something like that, because I, you know, rarely like to say that, but I felt like mentioning it there, just because. But, anyways, been busy a lot, and as a result, it's now March with all this. And no, the whole 10-year project thing I've been trying to work on, that also was getting fucked over by all this, so there is some delay. Once again, like I said, whatever it was, like the 8 or 9 months, whatever it may be, that still will be in effect. I'm gonna finish working on it, and then, you know, we'll be back for a while, right? I'll be back here making videos for a while. I'm taking a long fat break, and I'll get back to it. Speaking of that, the side story thing is still in play, but here's the thing. Because of that previous video, because of what I wanted to discuss in there, or rather what kind of slipped out, because I'll be honest, it kind of slipped out. I had no intention of actually wording it like that, but it's okay. I didn't want to edit it. I didn't want to do anything like that. So you all know now, it's writing related. It should be a little obvious on what that points to. And of course, my deal is still open because we haven't progressed past the point. I said I would tell you all if we did, or if we were getting close. We're barely even past the point, right? Not much has actually changed, right? I'm still working on my end. So, here's the thing. Right now, till whenever I let you all know that it's done, the hints and everything towards what I'm working on, still going to be active, all that. And if you can find out what it is before essentially this stopping point that I'm creating, right? You can find out what it is before that. I will do, like I mentioned on the previous video, that whole video on the ReZero side story type of stuff. I might just go with the volumes. I might just go with, you know, what really caught my eye the most. I might just talk about a generalization for them, maybe a median score. whatever it may be, I will figure out what to do there. Trust me, it sounds challenging, I know, but I can make it work. I really probably can make a video like that work, don't worry. So, I'd be willing to discuss a lot of the side stories, whatever it may be, in some fashion, right? Alright, so that video is still on the table. So here's the thing. You now know that it's writing related, and you can find it. And there's the hints on the Twitter link. I will show you the Twitter link here. I will show you the image of it, just because, and I will also put the link in the description below. Because, I mean, I'm sure typing this out will be a piece of shit. So, description below, there'll even be a card here, alright? That should make it easy. So with that said, writing related, there's all the hints, and, you know, you can find it. You can quite literally go and find it. It is somewhere. If you can all find it before I give you that closing point, before, you know, I say that's happening soon, rather after I say that it's happening soon, because I guess that would be the point where it's closing, but as soon as I let you all know that that door of opportunity is closed, that's where that whole thing ends. However, you can find it before that. I'll do it. I'll do the side story video. Just gotta find it. Look for the hints. Look to see if you can find anything anywhere correlating. Let's see. I want to see what you can all do with that. With that said, I'm gonna finish up Steins Gate and all that. I'm gonna obviously work on this video for the time being. And then after this week, I am back to that writing. And then, I guess that means I just have to make it available to all of you to a certain degree. And after a certain period of time, that door will close. I'm also going to put up a poll at the time. I mean, I know I already had a poll up, which, by the way, apologies for this video. I know there's no drawing on the thumbnail. I wanted to do a drawing, but this is very tight on time. You gotta understand, I wanted to have this out for all of you before the stage, and as a result, I couldn't exactly get a drawing out immediately, so we're using the Priscilla cover just for the time being. Maybe the next one I will be able to get a drawing out, I hope so. We'll see, right? Anyways, regarding all that, apologies for that, that's okay. But I know I had a poll regarding that. I will do the drawing thumbnails, all that. But I did want to create another poll, and feel free to comment below right now if you want to voice your own opinion just now about it. But I was going to ask, essentially, when this whole thing's over, right? When me closing that door is over, I don't know necessarily that I'm going to reveal what the project is or the information regarding it and all that. So I'm curious about this, right? When that door is closed, that's where the side story thing is cut off. I want to let you know right now. There is no side story thing as soon as that door is closed, right? However, would you all still want to see if you can find out like what it is via the hints, or would you just want me to talk about it full stop, right? Would that be the point where I should just speak about it to all of you, or would you rather like, you know what, it's still fun to go through the hints even if we're not going to get the video. It's still fun to go through the hints and try and figure it out, right? There is a set point in time that guaranteed I am going to talk about it. I know exactly when. But if you all still want to do the hints, I'm cool with that. If you all want me to talk about it after that door closes, I'm cool with that. I will note, if you all figure it out before that door closes, obviously I'm going to talk about it. If you figure it out at any point, even after the fact of the door closing, and you know, the hints keep coming, and like then you realize what it is, yeah, I'll still talk about it then. It's just, there's a set period of time where I know for a fact I will talk about it regardless of that. But let me know. With that said, that's all for this video. I'm going to go relax and soothe my throat. These videos take out a lot on my throat. It's not necessarily like bad or anything. Just gets draining, you know? It gets draining. That's how it is for making videos sometimes. It's tough work to a certain degree. But that's about it. So take care. Have yourselves a great night. And I'll see you all next time. Possibly with the next review. Farewell, peeps.